Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my story about iCare benefits. As you may have known, over the past 20, 30 years, in many developing countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, there's been a massive migration wave of people moving from the rural area to the metropolitan, to the urban city to be the factory workers. For a very simple reason. Being a farmer, typically you make about $1 a day, and the income is not even that regular. But being a factory worker, now your income improved to $5 to $10 a day, effectively about $200 to $300. So that's a significant improvement over what they could earn back in the rural area. But being in the new environment, then it posed many other challenges, from accommodation to being away from the family, not having a supporting infrastructure, having additional new cost structure. And therefore, these young people, typically they are at the very young age, struggle to basically meet with their daily lives. So that's where iCare Benefits as a program is designed to hopefully improve their standard of living of the factory worker and their family. And this is the story that I'd like to share in the next few moments. iCare Benefits is essentially an employee benefit program focusing on the factory's medium size to big size. And essentially, it enables the factory worker and their family to be able to get access to many of the basic essential products and services in around 4 areas. The first one is to enable the worker and their family to be able to get access to all the basic essential household goods. For example, people should sleep on a mattress. People should have a refrigerator at home. If you have a children at school age, then your child or your children should have a PC. In September, then the children should have school supplies and books. To all of us here, we don't even think about this problem because it's already there in our house. But to the factory worker, it poses a very interesting challenge. The reason is because if we're making a monthly basis about $200 to $300, it becomes very challenging to be able to afford, say, a refrigerator, because a basic level, entry-level refrigerator costs about $250 to $300. So how can you afford that refrigerator, which essentially costs a whole month of salary or even a little bit more, right? So what happened is most people don't have a refrigerator. And you can imagine life without a refrigerator is a very difficult life, right? Through the iCare benefits, what we are able to help is that we are able to enable that same worker and their family to be able to get access to that same refrigerator with the same price as if they were to go out and buy with cash. But now the biggest difference is that we enable them to be able to pay over 6 equal installments over 6 months with 0 interest. So essentially, they can buy that $300 refrigerator and pay $50 per month. Over 6 months, then they pay out of they can complete that payment. So because of this scheme, it suddenly enables the worker and their family to now being able to get access to that mattress, being able to get access to that PC, that refrigerator. And another very interesting story that I've learned is, for example, in around September, more than typically half of the factory worker as a parent typically get into debt, because at that time they have to go out and borrow money to buy for their children's school supplies, the tuition, and all that stuff. And when they borrow money, they have to pay with significant interest rate. Through our program, now they can get to pay all of those school supplies over a period of 6 months, no incurring any interest, and at the price equivalent to the price that they would have paid with cash. So that's essentially the first part. The second part is that the iCare benefit program also enable the worker and their family to get access to all the basic essential healthcare and medical services. An example is that HPV vaccine to prevent cervical cancer among young women and young girls is strongly recommended for all younger and women. But because the vaccine cost about $200 or $300, again, the same story. They basically this segment they cannot afford it, and so therefore nobody take this vaccine. So when we work with our partner to be able to provide that vaccine to this female factory worker and their children, suddenly we see a significant portion of them lining up to be able to do it. For the vaccine program, we were able to offer them a 10-month installment. Again, so that $200 vaccine over 10 months now costs $20 per month. Again, doesn't incur any additional financing or interest cost, and it's equivalent to the cost, right? Many other programs in the healthcare, from dental, iCare, to prescription medicine. All of these have the same common characteristic, is that to this factory worker and their family, a single one-time payment is extremely hard for them. Because if you think about it, their disposable income is probably less than a handful of dollars, because after paying all the necessity for that. So therefore, they cannot afford it. The third area that we enable the worker and their families to be able to get access to all the basic information, content, education, vocational training. For example, we have a program to work with UNICEF to bring basic hand washing, sanitation content, to bring breastfeeding content directly to the worker. And this we basically, because this content are available for free, so therefore we bring it for free to the worker. Other programs, for example, a computer class may cost only $20. But to the parent who make $200, that $20 is actually very hard. But yes. $20 divided by 6, then it's $3 or $4 a month. So then there's a higher percentage of parents will try a little bit harder. And then the children will have access to that computer class. We're working with Intel and other partners to have a very significant initiative in the education, is that we believe that English education should be free and accessible to all factory workers. And there's no reason why children in Vietnam should not be able to grow up and speak English fluently in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because the technology now allows this thing to be feasible through the smartphone, through the PC, and through the connectivity. So that's the...
You've described what iCare Benefits does.
Yes.
Trung Dung, now I want you to talk a little bit about yourself.
Oh.
And how the journey that brought you to doing this business, because I know that you're a migrant yourself.
Right.
We only have 2 minutes, but I thought that maybe you could share that with the audience, because
yes.
I think it's a nice dimension, a nice kind of different light to shed on this idea of enlightened self-interest that leads to business leadership.
Thank you. For some reason, I tend very uncomfortable talking about myself, but
everyone is.
I'm
just making you.
I am actually what we call a first-generation immigrant. When I was 17 years old, I had to leave Vietnam under a very difficult situation around 1984. And as a refugee, I arrived to the US by myself, and therefore going through a very similar experience, not unlike many of these migrant workers, basically being very, very far away from parents, from family, being alone with yourself, and not having any infrastructure to support, right? And going through the journey of studying English and going to school and supporting myself, and with all of that, eventually I was able to finish university and grad school, and then during the internet kind of revolution, I was able to start one of a very pioneering technology internet company, and it went on to be quite successful. And then a few years ago, I go back to Vietnam, and as part of working on this what's now becoming iCare Benefits.
So you are, in fact, an example of what we were talking about earlier. I think Simon's words have become something of a theme, that you changed from a messenger messenger boy to a delivery boy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed, Trung Dung of iCare Benefits. I wish we had more time to talk
thank you.
about your story.
Okay, thank you.